Gas prices have been on the rise due in part to the unrest in the Middle East. Gas Buddy has prices at their highest level in more than a month in 49 out of 50 states. ABC's Rebecca Jarvis says that prices may jump as much as 15 cents a gallon over the next couple of weeks.
We have seen prices climbing in recent weeks amid rising tensions in the Middle East, and that flows through to the pump. With the national average now $3.20 a gallon, it actually jumped 2 cents just overnight.
After 584 days in Hamas captivity, Eden Alexander has finally returned home. Alexander was greeted by crowds of supporters in his hometown, Tenafly, New Jersey, freed from Hamas captivity last month in a deal brokered by the Trump administration before spending time recovering at a hospital in Tel Aviv. A 9-year-old girl's life saved after a shark attack near Tampa, Florida. Leah Lindell was snorkeling at the beach in Boca Grande, Florida, when the shark bit her hand, and paramedics rushing her to Tampa, the general hospital there, where doctors were able to reattach her hand. Dr. Alfred Hess is orthopedic hand surgeon at Tampa General. He says the reattachment of the hand was possible because the break was clean.
The shark's teeth are so sharp that the cut through the wrist is clean and not jagged, and it doesn't ruin all the tissue, so that we have good tissue to work with and put back together in a timely fashion.
Dave Packer, ABC News.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Lucky Larry's Landscaping, Larry! Larry saved his business money with a quick commercial auto quote from Progressive. Does it help he's his own marketing manager, accountant, executive assistant, and never been late? Technically, yes, but saving really put him over the edge. So, Larry, give Larry a round of applause. Be your own Larry. See if you could save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
5:05 now on this Thursday afternoon, and I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News headline. We head into hour 2 of KVNU's For the People show. Well, Bryan Kohberger was in court yesterday afternoon as a judge heard arguments over whether or not to delay the start of his capital murder trial in Idaho that's scheduled to begin in August. Kohberger is accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students at their off-campus home back in November of 2022. His defense team filed a motion for continuance in which Judge Hippler had heard arguments on yesterday. Now, the defense had argued that the nearly 68 terabytes of evidence that had been turned over to them by prosecutors is so much data that there's no way for them to effectively go through all of it ahead of trial. Now, to put that number into perspective, 68 terabytes is equal to roughly 17 million photos or 68,000 simple videos. Now, the defense's second point centered around sealed information that was leaked to the press and aired in an episode of Dateline earlier this year. The defense has argued that the court should allow more time for that information to cool down before the trial begins. Now, the judge, after hearing arguments, said he would issue a written order and said that that would be coming out soon, but he still told everyone to continue moving forward as if the trial is going to happen as scheduled. Meanwhile, a twice-convicted child sex offender was sentenced to 15 years in prison and a lifetime of probation after he intended to meet up with an 11-year-old boy to sexually abuse him. Peyton Davis, a 30-year-old, was already a registered sex offender when he violated his supervised release. Now, he was convicted in 2018 of possessing child pornography. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Utah, they said that between November 6th and 7th of 2023, Davis had used a portable gaming console to communicate with an undercover agent who was posing as the father of an 11-year-old boy. Now, Davis repeatedly had confirmed to the undercover agent that he wanted to sexually abuse the child. Davis and the undercover agent agreed to meet. The undercover agent discovered that Davis was a registered sex offender currently on federal supervised release. And on November 7th, Davis arrived at that prearranged location and was taken into custody. And police in South Salt Lake are searching for a suspect who they say shot another man during an altercation. Now, the shooting happened Tuesday night at around 11:30. Officers with the South Salt Lake Police responded to the scene after a report of a victim suffering a gunshot wound. Now, when they arrived on the scene, they found a man in his mid-40s who had been shot in a lower extremity. Now, police learned that the suspect and the victim had known each other and were involved in some kind of altercation when shots were fired. Now, details about the nature of the altercation were not released. The suspect is described as a man also in his mid-40s who was last seen with a white shirt and black pants or shorts. Now, officials said it appeared to be an isolated incident and there was no ongoing threat to the public. And it's been a hot one this afternoon as we've been in the mid-90s, and now tonight, well, not really going to cool off as much as we would like. Temperature is going to be only around the low 60s to high 50s, still with mostly clear skies overnight. Tomorrow, we'll see temperatures right around the high 80s to low 90s, and then a little cooler temperatures for the weekend as we'll be in the 70s. It's going to feel really nice Saturday and Sunday with temperatures staying right around 74, 75 degrees. First of next week, temperature is going to be right around the low 80s. And weather this hour brought to you by the Lawn Doctor. Ask them about their HydroGuard service. It can help keep your lawn green and healthy and saves you time and money watering. It's the Lawn Doctor. Give them a call at 753-LAWN. And I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News headline.
Keeping you informed. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, and online at 610kvnu.com.
Owning a business may be stressful, but insuring it doesn't have to be. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. Our experienced agents have been in the industry for many years and understand the challenges you face. As an independent agency, we have access to multiple carriers like Auto Owners Insurance to ensure you get the policy that's right for your company. Let's give your business insurance a fresh look. Call us today, 435-752-0101.
Summer's here, the kids are home, and the laundry, it's multiplying like rabbits. John at the Duck Hunter says if your dryer is sighing louder than you are, it might be time for a vent cleaning. A clean vent means faster drying, fewer wrinkles, in your clothes, not your forehead, and a happy, long-living dryer. Call the Duck Hunter at 435-770-4813 for a quote, because your dryer deserves a little self-care too.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. It is still 92 degrees, 5:10 in the afternoon, and it's warm out there. 108 degrees in Ogden today, for at least a brief period of time. Salt Lake Airport, at least right now, sometimes they update this just after 6 o'clock, and the last update was at 3:45, so this could go up. But right now, the high recorded at the Salt Lake Airport today was 109. Yeah, it's pretty warm out there, and a few weeks early on this warm weather. So luckily, it does cool down, at least in the forecast, set to cool down next week. So we should survive, I think. But man, every year I say this, but every year I'm not. I think I'm prepared for it. I'm ready for the summer temperatures. I love spring and summer. Probably my favorite two seasons here in Cache Valley. And but yeah, that summer heat hits hard for your first day or two in the 90s. Just rough. But speaking of summer and sunshine and sun, Utah State University joining in Governor Cox's effort to. Governor Cox has set a goal of making Utah an energy leader in the United States and the Intermountain West, especially in a couple of different ways. Fast-tracking small modular nuclear technology, which is still years away, but fewer years away than I think even the legislature anticipated when they got the ball rolling on this earlier this year. In theory right now, or the company setting up to do the R&D on this at the State Energy Lab, they're saying it could be 5 years they could have a fully tested and operational small modular nuclear energy facility ready to shove in the ground somewhere outside of a city and generating up to 15 kilowatts of power, megawatts of power, which is pretty significant. So that's a big deal. Geothermal, of course, is on the rise. Geothermal has a bright future as a percentage of Utah's energy portfolio. Let's put it that way. It actually, though, industry experts say geothermal is going to have a longer lifespan than natural gas, which Utah also banks a lot on because we have a lot of that to supply and sell. The one thing that we do know, though, Utah still gets a lot of its electricity from coal-fired plants, both in Utah and in neighboring states through the Rocky Mountain Power, power swapping grid that they have. So a lot of our electricity still does come from coal-fired power plants. What we do know is the market for that has bottomed out. And so you can blame AOC and the Green New Deal if you want, but that never actually got passed. So you can blame environmentalists in general for talking about climate change for the last 40 years. You can blame anybody you want for this, but the reality is at a certain point, coal became less profitable. And that's really what is leading to the shift. So, and less desirable, admittedly. It's a dirty fuel, to say the least, and our air quality is already pretty challenged here in Utah. So less desirable, but also, and probably even more importantly to the decision makers behind these shifts in the industry, at least, not in governments, but in the industry, is the profit margin. Coal got less profitable. Natural gas, geothermal, at least potentially, and solar and wind have a much lower or much larger profit margin on the electricity sold. So that's really what's leading to the shift. And those who are concerned about climate change and pollutants we're putting into the air every day, they are cheering one way or another. I don't think they care what the incentives that cause it to happen are. They're just glad that the shift is happening. And Governor Cox has made this, he's just embraced it. And I admire him for doing it because in a red Republican state, and you can contrast Utah with other red Republican states to kind of see some examples, but some people in those states, elected leaders in those states, have decided to just trench in. And, let's be honest. When does this ever work? When does digging your heels in, staking out some ground, and refusing to shift ever pay off well? The reality is things change and move around you, whether you choose to be a part of it or not. So I admire Governor Cox for taking a little bit of a political risk. It's a small political risk because the legislature's behind him. Other red state governors are behind him. There are only a few that are not, that are digging their heels in and saying, nope, coal and mining and nothing else. Governor Cox has instead said, hey, let's do all of it. So the state, under his leadership and with the legislature's thumbs up as well, funding-wise, the state is greasing the wheels on the development of wind electricity, of expanding solar and geothermal. Geothermal is still getting its legs, but everyone agrees, it seems, that there's a bright future there, and Utah has a lot to offer as far as generating electricity from geothermal, from steam-powered turbines, basically. That's not new technology at all, so the investment's low, and the payoff is high, and again, we have a lot of it to offer. It's just how to effectively harness it that still needs to be perfected. But the state is well down that road, far ahead of other states especially, including Wyoming, which blows me away. Why Wyoming is not on top of... I think this might actually go back to some of the entrenching that I mentioned there. The fact that Wyoming isn't leading the nation in all of the three, wind, solar, and geothermal, blows me away. What a missed opportunity for Wyoming's economy and residents. All because of the politics around green energy. And people digging their feet in and saying, "Oh, we want no part of it. It's just mining and coal, nothing else." Now that's an exaggeration. That isn't what Wyoming has said. They have moderately embraced geothermal and wind and solar, but why they aren't like just running with it, it just blows me away and shows that sometimes our political, our partisan blinders, as they're called, can make us make bad decisions, both those in elected office, but also voters who put them there. Because I think Governor Cox's approach is the smartest. Ways that's playing out. So the reason I bring this up today is I ran across 9 different stories. I ran across 9 different stories in the last week that are in one way or another related to Utah having a very cutting edge and I mean, frankly, kind of exciting to consider energy future. And again, coal and mining for coal, which happens here in Utah as well, and and then the burning of coal for electricity. That's going to be a part of Utah's future for a time to come, a decade, maybe 2 still. But the fact that Utah is seeing such success with a couple of solar array pilot programs, some wind projects out in the eastern portion of the state, and more planned in other areas. Again, fast tracking makes it sound like they're cutting corners. I don't think they are. Greasing the wheels on R&D of these small modular nuclear reactors that are buried. I don't know. The last iteration I saw, they were buried and generating about 15 megawatts of power. For whatever city invests in them, or county, or whatever it might be. Maybe the state will just buy 5 or 6 and scatter them throughout. I don't know. That all will be worked out by the legislature in the years to come. But the company behind the R&D that the legislature is throwing a lot of money at to say, get this, let's get this going. They surprised the legislature again by saying we can do this in 5 years, most likely. And I don't think the legislature was expecting that fast of a time frame. I think they were thinking 10 to 15. Not that that's a bad thing, but that meant they had to scramble a bit more than they were prepared for to get the guardrails in place for this. I think it's a really cool time. And so again, 9 different articles I ran across just in my random news reading over the last 4 days that in some way show Utah from one. So a local story at CashValleyDaily.com just today that kind of triggered off my thinking on this. USU is expanding its solar energy array set as well. They're expanding. There's a new installations at USU have nearly doubled on-campus solar energy production, and they partnered with Castlegate Engineering, and this is nearly 500 kilowatts generated from the total installation once it's all completed. It is completed, but now that it's up and running, it's going to be up 500 kilowatts. It's on the roof of the Stanlab indoor practice facility there on the corner of campus. And then there's another 150 kilowatts that are being brought online to that 500. So roughly you've got around 150 kilowatts that are being added to the nearly 340 kilowatt system at the Gateway parking structure. And so, and then they have another 2 kilowatts that are about to get online, it sounds like, at the Equine Center on USU South Farm in Wellsville. And then they already have set up and are bringing online the Cane Dairy milking facility in Wellsville as well on the roof there. So all said and done, USU says this will be adding about 1,000 kilowatts of solar capacity to the systems in general, producing about 1.6 billion kilowatt hours of electricity a year. And that's enough to power roughly 200 homes for an entire year. And this is literally just making use of rooftop space. So I think that's a cool example of what Governor Cox is kind of pushing for, and the legislature behind him on this, incentivizing public institutions like land-grant universities, USU, and the schools all throughout Utah, higher ed and otherwise, but also looking at ways maybe that the school districts can get on this, but then also incentivizing just the development and the installation throughout the state from a public perspective. And then at the same time, expanding the state's own energy portfolio with geothermal, wind, solar, nuclear in the next few years. So no state, because of the way the grids are designed and work, no state is ever going to be fully energy independent. That's just not physically possible. Even if we're overproducing electricity here in Utah, the way the contracts and power sharing agreements work, Rocky Mountain Power, for example, still gets to decide if a lot of that ends up heading somewhere else where need is high. So no state is ever going to be able to sit back and say, we generate exactly what we need, we're building a wall. Just not how the electricity grids are set up, and never will be set up that way. But what Utah can do, if they follow the trajectory that Governor Cox and Governor Herbert before him to some extent too, if they follow the trajectory that we're currently on, Utah could get to a point where you see headlines that are along the lines of cheapest power rates in the nation, fewest number of blackouts and brownouts in the nation, highest number of grid redundancy points in the event of a wildfire and an earthquake. That's the kind of stuff that I think Utah is well on track for. We're not there, to be honest with you. Our grid's in trouble right now. We've let infrastructure go in this state big time. And they'll never do it, but honestly, to a large extent, Utah leaders owe former President Biden, and Mitt Romney as well was a big part of this, for that infrastructure reinvestment bill a few years ago, because that money is taking care of some long overdue infrastructure projects, including some power grid projects. But that was spurred because everyone watched what happened in California and thought, oh, we got to stop kicking this can down the road, because Utah's not alone in kicking that can. Don't get me wrong. This is, and in fact, it's not a red state thing. It's not a blue state thing. There are just a lot of states that have said, we'll have plenty of time to get to that. And then they watch the wildfires in California just wipe out half the state's electrical grid, and it takes almost a month to get it back online. And then, of course, there was the other wildfire that was actually, they believe, started by the electrical grid failing. And so I think at that point, states were like, we'd better actually do something about this. But they didn't have the money. And then the Infrastructure Reinvestment Act is passed at the federal level, and now they have the money. And again, my point here is the future's pretty bright on this front. But what's intriguing to me, all 9 of these news stories that in some way or another talk about some new thing that's happening regarding Utah and energy, not a single one of them is repeated. They're all 9 independent stories, but they also all point to kind of capitalizing on the resources you have, but also getting past some of the, again, partisan blinders that have everybody. I mean, I remember this. I remember someone saying once to an older relative of mine, they never recycled. The exact words were, I'm sick of the hippies telling me I need to recycle, so I don't recycle. And he said that to a person who grew up in the tail end of the Great Depression and remembered a lot of the recycling and saved the country, or helped the troops, rather, efforts that were going on during World War II. They remembered that as a kid and a teen. And I remember this older gentleman saying to this friend of mine, after he said, I don't recycle, I'm sick of the hippies telling me I have to recycle. He said, that's really wasteful. Like, why would you waste? It struck me because you have this older conservative guy lecturing a younger conservative guy, because the older guy remembered the shortages coming out of the Great Depression and remembered the recycle all your steel efforts during World War II, and just had learned to hate waste. That to me is always the greatest example of how partisan blinders can make you make bad decisions. And you pat yourself on the back, right? You were a good, loyal partisan. But did you really achieve anything? No. And Governor Cox, I think, is really, I don't know if it's his goal, but he's really making that point with his energy policy. He's putting aside what is cool or acceptable for a conservative Republican to get behind, solar, wind, things like that. He's also ignoring the staunchest critics on the left who are saying it should only be solar and wind. We shouldn't do anything with nuclear because of the potential, for danger, which is real. You know, you don't downplay that. Chernobyl was pretty ugly, right? And you have something like that happen outside of Kemmerer, it's going to hit Salt Lake and the Wasatch Front and Cache Valley too. So you got to take the risk seriously and not bury your head in the sand about it. But technology has changed a lot, and the governor's ignoring those who are saying we shouldn't do anything with nuclear. But he's also ignoring those who are saying we shouldn't do anything with wind and solar because AOC loves it. And I admire him for that. And again, 9 stories over the last few days that I've found just skimming the news, looking for energy stories, kind of showing that Governor Cox is proving everybody right. So we'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this.
You're guaranteed to score the perfect thrift deal at Cache Valley's biggest garage sale this Saturday, June 21st from 8 to 3 at the Eccles Ice Center parking lot. Rows of unique finds, vinyl records, vintage clothes, patio sets, power tools. You never know what you'll discover. Plus, enjoy food trucks, a free kids zone with inflatable fun, and the thrill of the hunt. Cache Valley's biggest garage sale still has room for you to sell your treasures. Go to CacheValleyGarageSale.com for sign-up and details.
It's our 100th year of summer getaways at Murdoch GMC Chevrolet Cadillac. From the mountains to Moab, we'll get you there because every great summer starts with the right ride. Right now, take up to $2,500 off the all-new Terrain. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Chevrolet GMC Cadillac in Logan or online at MurdochChevroletLogan.com. GMC, we are professional grade.
Call 888-391-6083 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 6/30/2025.
I talk too much. We're off the clock. So we're going to get back on it here just a minute or two before we go to the news. So just you're going to set this up because it's been kind of fascinating to watch in a lot of different ways. But Senator Mike Lee's having a really bad week. Coming off of a weekend in which even Republican colleagues in the Senate and Republicans in the state of Minnesota were calling for his apology and chastising him for, let's be honest, a series of very juvenile tweets joking about a political murder. I don't know what the senator was thinking, but it was very immature, and he ate it. He deleted the tweets, but he hasn't publicly said anything or apologized or taken accountability, which is also a dumb move for a politician because that just keeps everyone talking about it. Just apologize and let everybody move on. It honestly, smartest strategy, always. But politicians never seem to get that. Anyway, so Senator Lee's week started out poorly, and then it got worse with a provision in the big, beautiful bill, the budget bill, regarding the sale of public lands. Now, this isn't the transfer of public lands to the state of Utah, something the legislature has been fighting for a while. From transferring lands from federal management to state management. That's a goal of the legislature and 3 governors in a row now. But legally it hasn't played out well for the state so far. But this is different. This is an outright private sale of millions of acres of public land across the American West. A map was put together based on the details in the bill, and that's where things kind of hit the fan for Senator Mike Lee. Give you an example. In the map, if you look between Logan and Bear Lake, the mountains to the east of us, between Cache Valley and Bear Lake Valley, there would be so many no trespassing signs along those dirt roads and trails that are very popular for not just summer outdoor recreation enthusiasts, but any hunter you talk to and show this map to, the veins on their foreheads bulge. I've tested it personally, just yesterday, in fact. We'll talk about this because what makes me angry about this is, and this is actually something that a left-leaning college professor once said to me, a class in USU's Natural Resources Department while working on my degree. I remember a left-leaning professor, At least that was my guess. Pretty confident guess based on some other conversations we had in class. But I would guess left-leaning. And he said, when it comes to the ownership of public lands, the federal and state ownership of public lands, this was right after a public lands debate had bubbled up in Nevada or something at the time. And he said, the idea that years and years ago we stumbled on the perfect ratio of public ownership versus private ownership of land is just patently ridiculous. We should be able to have that conversation, but we never can because both sides are so entrenched in their kind of extreme point of views, with one side saying there should be no public land. It should all be privately owned and let the market reward those who do it responsibly and punish those who lock recreational enthusiasts out, which is not a very realistic land management plan. Sorry, libertarians. And then you have the other side on the left saying, there should be no such thing as private land. Now, this is extreme. You don't hear this very often, but I have heard people say this. So those are the kind of two extremes. And this professor was trying to say there's something in between where we should at least be able to have the conversation. Because if there's a plot of publicly owned land, federally managed or state managed, and it's very useful to a city that's butting right up against that land, and you can do a swap for maybe some more valuable public land, we should be having those conversations. We should be talking about it. Now Senator Lee isn't proposing that. He's proposing that private sale of more than 2 million acres of private land, basically from the eastern edge of Colorado on to the western coast. This is in Oregon, California, Nevada, Montana. I don't know what he was thinking. The entire Republican delegation of Montana has said they will not vote for the bill with this in here. Absolutely not. Ryan Zinke, former Interior Secretary in the first Trump administration, was one of the most vocal. But interestingly enough, Senator Mike Lee's provision is now getting lobbied against by conservative hunting groups out of Idaho, and they are throwing a lot of money at anyway, it's a really interesting development. But let's talk about what Mike Lee says his goal is here and why the map looks the way it does. Why these large chunks of areas that people enjoy for hiking, biking, hunting, ATV riding, and more. Why Senator Lee, the argument he's making for selling them to private entities, to private owners, into private ownership. We'll talk about it after this look at the news with KVN News. Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Law enforcement and emergency crews called out to investigate a grenade that had been found inside a home Wednesday afternoon. The incident was reported around 4 o'clock at a Logan home near 370 West, 400 North. According to emergency radio communications at the time, the grenade was discovered in the home's basement. Now, Logan City Police Captain Shan Nazer said that family members had told officers they were cleaning their father's home and found the explosive-looking device, fearing the worst. Now, police officers blocked the street in front of the residence and requested the bomb squad. Nazer explained that when bomb technicians arrived on the scene, they determined the grenade was inert and did not pose any threat. Well, this heat is not only causing health risks, but also fire danger. As much of northern Utah is baking, officials say that those individuals who are most sensitive to heat, especially those who don't have access to effective cooling systems or adequate hydration, need to take precautions to prevent themselves from incurring heat-related illnesses like heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Now, that should be in the form of avoiding strenuous activities during the hottest times of the day. And if you're going to be out this afternoon, try to wear lightweight, light-colored clothing and drink lots of water to stay hydrated. Now, not only are the temperatures the problem, but also with the winds that are gusting and the humidity low, that's increasing our fire danger. As right now, if a fire were to start, the wind and the hot conditions can cause it to grow rapidly. Officials are asking people to keep their lawnmowers and other gardening tools well away from rocks and other materials that can cause sparks. Also, make sure that if you are going to be up in the mountains and you do want to have a campfire, well, only put those where they're allowed to be, and then make sure to douse them really good with water and stir them when you're done. And in other news, Idaho Governor Brad Little has authorized up to $300,000 from the state's emergency fund to assist U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement with transporting convicted undocumented immigrants out of Idaho jails. Now, the decision, which was approved earlier this week by the Idaho Board of Examiners, follows the state's entry into a partnership with ICE. Now, that agreement allows certain state enforcement officers to perform limited immigration enforcement duties under ICE supervision. Now, Governor Little had previously asked Idaho State Police to estimate the cost of such transports, and ISP's Colonel Bill Gardner had responded saying that transporting up to 100 groups of convicted non-citizens would cost as much as $300,000. Now, Governor Little's emergency fund has been used previously to assist with border state law enforcement efforts and also to help the state in its ongoing efforts to combat fentanyl distribution. Well, it's been a hot one today, and tonight not really going to cool off as much as we would like, as temperatures will be down into the low 60s, high 50s. Tomorrow, a little cooler weather as we'll be into the low 90s, so at least a little better than it was today. And then continuing to see temperatures drop as we head into the weekend. Saturday, for the first official day of summer, well, temperature's only going to be around the mid-70s, and then low 70s on Sunday. We'll get back into the high 70s to low 80s for the first of next week. And with your air conditioner running right now the way it is, Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning wants you to feel the love as they are looking for people who need a new furnace and air conditioning unit. They are looking for 5 people to give away a brand new heating and air conditioning unit. All you have to do is just nominate someone who needs to feel the love. Go to mountainvalleyhvac.com, click on the Feel the Love tab, and you can nominate somebody who could win. And that's your news and weather here at the bottom of the hour. I'm Will Feelright. We'll have another check of local news coming up at 6:30.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. 2 weeks. The timeline from President Trump today as to when we can expect a decision on whether he'll authorize an attack on Iran. One of the options President Trump is considering, what's known as a bunker buster bomb to destroy Iran's underground Fordo nuclear facility. ABC News Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez.
The concerns are whether this massive ordnance penetrator can actually destroy that facility. It's never been used in combat. Testing indicates it goes down to a certain depth. The question is, are those Iranian facilities down too deep, potentially, for this penetrator?
Dodger Stadium in L.A., a group of protesters gathering near one of the entrance gates after the Dodgers confirmed that ICE requested permission to access the parking lots. The organization says the agents were denied entry. 500,000 customers without power along the mid-Atlantic after a band of powerful thunderstorms tore through. Police say a teenager was struck by lightning in New York. This is ABC News.
Hey listeners, let's talk comfort. Specifically, how Cardinals insulation can help. Did you know the average home loses up to 35% of its heated or cooled air through the walls and roof? But here's the good news. When you call Cardinals, not only will you feel the difference with a quieter, more energy-efficient home, but you could also qualify for a tax credit up to $1,200. Save money year-round with Cardinals insulation. Call 755-5012. That's 755-5012.
Here's Chad, the lawn doctor, with a tip for your lawn.
Just a couple tips for this summer for a healthier lawn. Raise your lawnmower blade a notch or two. Longer grass helps conserve water and fight against stress. Double check your sprinkler coverage and watering times. Then call the lawn doctor to put down a grub preventative and to try our popular new 2-service soil enrichment program.
Fertilizer, weed, and pest control. Call the lawn doctor at 753-LAWN or go to LawnDoctorCashValley.com.
How are your eyes? Is your vision not as clear as it used to be? Did you know over 24 million Americans over the age of 40 are affected by cataracts? This is Dr. Christian Nilsson from the Northern Utah Eye Center. Cataract surgery is one of the safest, most common, and effective surgical procedures performed today. With cataract removal, patients can choose new lenses to customize their vision. Our surgical team will ensure your vision is our focus. Visit northernutaheyecenter.com or call 752-2020 today.
You're gonna love what you see.
Summer's here, and it's time to make your outdoor projects shine. Bear River Valley Co-op in Corinne has everything you need. From topsoil or fertilizer to medium bark and mulch, they have lawn and garden supplies that will keep your yard looking its best. Need to build or repair a fence? They've got fencing lumber and sturdy railroad ties. Tackling a bigger project? Rent their equipment. Choose from 2 skidsters, 2 mini track hoes, 2 dump trailers, and a variety of skidster attachments. Visit Bear River Valley Co-op in Corinne today. More information at brvalleycoop.com.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Friday on This Morning, America's first news from the Middle East, breaking down the potential role for the United States as Israel and Iran continue exchanging targeted airstrikes. Also, investors don't seem to be raising the alarm over the war between the two rival nations. We'll examine the market's reaction so far. And the going rate for kids' allowances these days in the face of higher prices. Friday on This Morning, America's first news. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. It's been a tough week for Senator Mike Lee. Started out rough with some tweets he had to delete after getting confronted in probably one of the most iconic photos of 2025, all said and done. This photo of Senator Mike Lee just literally being read the riot act by much shorter than him, Senator Tina Smith from Minnesota. Minnesota, of course, was the location of a tragic murder of a husband and wife, one of them a state lawmaker, former Speaker of the House in Minnesota, in fact, and then the attempted murder of 2 others from the state legislature, husband and wife as well. Both survived, but just shocking detail. She was shot 17 times shielding her daughter by this madman shooting at them. And he had 45 other Democrats in the state on his list of to-dos when the manhunt started. Before he'd been caught, Senator Mike Lee, in extremely poor taste at most generous, absolutely irresponsible and boneheaded, least generous take, tweeted some jokes about it, and some conspiracy theories that there was actually a leftist plot to make Republicans look bad. And I don't know what's happened to the senator, but I don't think social media is good for him. I think you should consider a break. It was embarrassing. Governor Cox yesterday shared a Deseret News op-ed or Deseret News editorial from the Deseret News editorial board. Usually a staunch defender of Senator Mike Lee, or at least having his back to give him a space to explain himself when things go south. They even came out and piled on. They said the senator needs to apologize, and the longer he waits, the worse it looks for Utah and his faith. This type of behavior. They said his behavior was that bad. Pretty strong words for the Deseret News. Anyway, so that's how his week started. And then this provision of the big, beautiful bill now in the Senate comes out. This provision isn't entirely new. Utah Representative Celeste Malloy tried to do this on a smaller scale and much more targeted, just some land outside of St. George in Washington County, basically. And some land in Nevada and Colorado was tucked into her provision as well, that would be sold from the federal public lands collection, sold permanently to private owners. And it bellied up in the House. One of her colleagues, Ryan Zinke, former Interior Secretary for Donald Trump in his first administration, was one of the most vocal opponents of Celeste Malloy's measure, said selling public land to private ownership is not something we should be in the business of, unless it is absolutely carefully reviewed and opened up to public comment for a lengthy period of time. This shouldn't be tucked into a budget bill, was what Zinke said. And he's right, in my opinion. So that bellied up, and then it gets to the Senate, and Senator Mike Lee has brought it back and also expanded it. Senator Lee wants to sell off even more acres of public land to private ownership. It's getting a lot of pushback from a lot of different groups. It's getting pushback from the groups you'd expect. SUA here in Utah, the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, and other environmentally oriented and oftentimes left-leaning groups have obviously pushed back against this. The sale of public land to private ownership is something they oppose in general. But what's interesting to me is also getting pushed back out of conservative groups in Idaho. There's a hunting group out of Idaho, one of the biggest in Idaho, whose owner was one of the largest donors in the state to Donald Trump's campaigns both times. And he wrote one of the most scathing op-eds I've read yet that wraps up with, I asked myself first what Senator Mike Lee is thinking, and then I've decided that he just isn't. And that op-ed talks about what this would do to hunters and outdoor recreation enthusiasts. And that op-ed is titled, "No Trespassing Signs Everywhere." That's the title of his op-ed in the Idaho Statesman yesterday. And again, big conservative donor who owns, actually I think he owns several different hunting groups in Idaho, including a private hunting ranch. So it's hard for Republicans to ignore voices like that. Ryan Zinke, congressman from Montana, former Interior Secretary, he's also opposed again. Said for the same reasons, he thinks this is a horrible idea to do this in this way. Zinke said, reiterated his words, "I'm not against the transfer or sale of public land when done responsibly and with a scalpel, not a hatchet. But public lands are important. They are part of our way of life here in the West, and I would urge Senator Mike Lee to rediscover that. When this happens, it should be done in a slow and lengthy, very public process with ample opportunity for public input and feedback, not tucked in to the final weeks of debate on a budget bill." So Zinke reiterating the same thing he said to Utah Congresswoman Celeste Malloy when she attempted this in the House. Again, Senator Lee has taken, I think it was 3 million. So Celeste Malloy's proposal in the House was like 2 or 3 million acres. Some here in Utah, some in Nevada, some in Montana. And Senator Lee has taken that and expanded it to about 20 million. And so some resourceful individuals took the details in Senator Lee's provision and dumped it into a GIS map creation tool. This has been verified by all Utah media outlets, the statewide media outlets, Fox 13, Salt Lake Tribune, and Deseret News all verified this is accurate. Washington Post and New York Times have also picked up on it and done the same, saying this is an accurate map. It matches the details as laid out in the actual language of Senator Mike Lee's proposal that he wants to attach to the big budget bill. And so this map started making the rounds yesterday, and it shows, well, I'll give you one example. Anything in green on the map is up for sale. If someone wants to buy it, doesn't mean there is a buyer, but it means it would be available for sale. And green is anything green is Forest Service land that would be up for sale, and anything in yellow on the map is BLM land that would be up for sale. And basically, between Cache Valley and Bear Lake, and I'm not exaggerating here, almost the entirety. We're talking the Mount Naomi area. We're talking the Steam Mill Lake and upper hills behind Tony Grove area. We're talking both sides of Logan Canyon, the road through Logan Canyon. It is basically the entirety of everything from the already privately owned foothills here in Cache Valley to the already privately owned foothills in Bear Lake Valley on the Bear Lake side of the canyon is up for sale in this map. It is. Zinke described it as a hatchet, not a scalpel approach, and I think that's a fair depiction. Senator Mike Lee, for his part, he went on Glenn Beck today to defend this, and he accused critics of spreading leftist falsehoods and misinformation. And he said, when this bill puts land in the category of eligibility for sale, it doesn't mean for sale. It just means there's a process by which it could end up for sale. Now, I'm not sure what he means by that. But he said that's impossible right now. This creates an avenue to it. So my take on what he's saying to defend the provision is, look, I'm not saying we should actually sell this land. What I'm saying is right now there's no process in which we could if we wanted to, and I want to create one. that's, of course, going to get responded to with, how is that different than saying we should sell the land? But that's the distinction he's making. The Wilderness Society did their own analysis, and they said about 18 million acres of public lands in Utah eligible for sale, along with millions more across other western states, would be the end result of this. And Senator Lee said that Senator Lee has got the message on this one, and it was probably the conservative groups that started speaking up yesterday. Again, I mentioned the well-moneyed guy who owns a couple of different hunting clubs and ranches in Idaho. He wrote an op-ed and is running ads against Senator Lee on this. Very opposed to the sale of public lands. Public lands are a pretty big key for hunters, right? I mean, it's difficult to enjoy that pastime without public lands, without Forest Service land, without, in many areas, BLM managed land, publicly owned. And so the idea of that going to a private owner, even with a promise that hunters would still be allowed, that private owner at any point could change their mind and throw up no trespassing signs. And that's the concern here, and I think it's a legitimate concern. I do also see what Senator Mike Lee's saying, because I remember, again, I started this way years ago. A left-leaning college professor in the Natural Resources Department at USU, I can't remember the name of the class he was teaching us, but he just kind of mentioned, he said he got frustrated with land management discussions. He was adamantly opposed to the idea of transferring management of federal land to Utah, mainly because, something I agree with, Utah can't afford it, which means Utah would have to start cutting corners and skimping, and the management quality goes down. And I think that's just a reality of Utah managing all that public land. So anytime you hear a lawmaker say, such and such percent of Utah's federally managed, what a crime. Well, no, we're kind of getting a deal on that one, because it costs a lot to manage public land. Wildfire prevention alone is like hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So unless you want to see the state budget balloon from the $22 billion it's at to about $42 billion, and the taxes that would need to be, fees, I guess is how we do it, that we need to collect to build that budget, I would say it's great the feds are managing so much public land in Utah, right? It's saving us $1 or $2. But I get the philosophy behind it. And this professor said, I'm opposed to the state managing the land because I just don't think the state of Utah can afford it. But what I think is ridiculous is that both sides are so entrenched, everyone's acting like we stumbled upon the perfect model somehow. That from the left, you hear this argument that is basically the current amount of acreage managed by states and the federal government as public land is the perfect amount of acreage, and it should never change. It should never shrink, ever. We should never reduce the amount of acreage that is public land for any reason. And that's kind of unreasonable. But equally unreasonable is the idea that there should be no publicly managed public lands. That should all just be privately managed, and you rely on the good faith of those private owners to, and market incentives, of course. But what's the market incentive for someone throwing up trespassing signs on huge acreages of public land that's now privately owned? What's the market punishment they will receive? Oh, people aren't going to not pay them for not being able to access the land they walled out. I mean, I don't think they're going to care. So it's ridiculous arguments from both extremes. And this professor was saying we should at least be able to have the conversation, because there are these small areas where maybe you can see. Sitla is a good example of this of Utah. They've come up with land swaps where they'll buy public land that has been put up for sale for whatever reason, and they'll sit on it, and then sometimes they can swap that for more valuable land, but the public land they have now becomes part of a conservation easement to protect open space in some area that some well-moneyed environmental group wants to do, and they work out a deal and they swap the land. And it's been very good for Utah schools. That money goes right into Utah schools, and it's been very good for land conservation as well. So I'm with Senator Lee on that. We should be able to. I don't know if his approach is going to get us there. It's a bit ham-handed, to quote Ryan Zinke, but I get where he's coming from. It is kind of ridiculous we can't have this conversation. Unfortunately, I think the way Senator Lee has gone about this, it's already blown up, and we're probably not going to have the conversation this time. But we should be able to talk about acreages of public lands managed and owned by the public, and areas where maybe a shift here and there, one direction or the other, is beneficial to everybody. We'll be back right after this.
Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning wants to help Cache Valley feel the love. Mountain Valley Heating and Air is giving away 5 fully installed heating and air conditioning units free of charge. Go to mountainvalleyhvac.com and help make a difference one home at a time. That's mtnvalleyhvac.com. Nominate prior to September 1st, 2025. See website for all details.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru for Morris Columbus Travel and Norwegian Cruise Line. Enjoy more fun at sea with Norwegian, including a free air promotion, shore excursion credits, specialty dining, open bar, Starlink Wi-Fi, and on select cruises, the third and fourth person sharing your cabin sail absolutely free. You just pay the taxes. For the best travel deals on the planet, give us a call at Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
You're guaranteed to score the perfect thrift deal at Cache Valley's biggest garage sale this Saturday, June 21st from 8 to 3 at the Eccles Ice Center parking lot. Rows of unique finds, vinyl records, vintage clothes, patio sets, power tools. You never know what you'll discover. Plus, enjoy food trucks, a free kids zone with inflatable fun, and the thrill of the hunt. Cache Valley's biggest garage sale still has room for you to sell your treasures. Go to CacheValleyGarageSale.com for sign up and details.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. This is a great comment from a listener here. Listener says, thank you. I agree, Senator Lee has had a bad week. Thank you for being nice to him on this one. I'm not really being nice to him so much as I'm saying because I don't think he deserves any slack for for his tweets. The first tweet that was embarrassing. It makes Utah look bad, and it's just, I mean, if you saw a 14-year-old acting that way, you'd tell him to stop. This man's my age. Yeah, it's just. But so I don't think he deserves any slack for that controversy. He deserves to be embarrassed by that one. But this one, I think people are coming down on him too hard for. So yeah, I'm not sticking up for him so much as I'm saying we should be able to talk about this. The public lands, I get it; they're a sacred cow. Because I agree with the sentiment often repeated that once you sell them, they're gone. You don't get public lands back from private ownership. So we should be careful. We should be able to talk about it because there are some places and spaces, I'm sure, where it would be appropriate and beneficial to everyone, even those who want to conserve land. So, yeah, let's just calm down and have conversations, folks.